Hi all, we're going to paint a park picture today, and all of those lovely white flowers, we are going to paint them by blocking them out and add detail in later. I found my reference picture off of Pixabay. It is a great place to check out and find some reference photos. So this is a small picture, 5 by 7, and I'm simply doing a wet on wet to start off. And starting off with the sky, and I'm going to pay attention to where the sun rays are in this picture, and I want to add in the glow around where the sun is. The sun, it's practically white. So I'm just going to do wet on wet, which is going to allow these paints to bleed into one another and just lay out some of the colors, and then I'm going to use a brush and start to pull up color off of the paper so I can keep the sun rays. Remember when you paint that when it dries, it's going to be a lot lighter than what you saw when you were putting the paint on. So give yourself time and let the color build up on your paper. I'm using another technique to block out the white. The white, remember, is something that we protect and we want to leave alone. We want to let that not be painted over. So I'm doing this in a very tedious way. I would recommend using Frisket for a picture like this that has a lot of white dots in it. You could put the Frisket on, it'll dry, and then you can pull it off later, and it basically kind of like blocks out where the white is. But I wanted to show another way of blocking by painting around something. This was kind of a tedious picture to do this with, but I don't care. I thought it would be a great example of blocking out and showing the success of that. And one of the things that I'm doing while I'm working on this is I keep adding water in and bringing down the paint. So as I'm adding in yellow and green, there's a point where I've got so much water on the paper, you're going to see the paint bleed down or run down. So it's going to blend by itself when I'm doing that. But because I've not put water on where the white is, it's not going to touch that. I love it. Watercolor goes where the water is. So if you don't put water on something, it's not going to go in there. It doesn't matter what you do with it, it will not add that in. So this is going to be a good picture of seeing how I can use water and what I call the bead. And the bead is I'm adding enough water in here to where the paint is going to start to want to run down the rest of my picture, and that's called the bead. There's going to be a drop of water that you'd see, and I'm pulling it down, I'm pulling it down, I'm pulling it down, so it blends and it looks really, really pretty. It's very smooth looking in here, and I am just continuing on that. And then you could see where I added enough water, and then I put a little dollop of paint in there, and it's beautiful. It spreads all by itself. So try different things. I do think it's worth learning and trying this method of blocking, and I had a lot of fun doing this one. As I've built the colors into this scene, and I've kept this area wet, I let it dry. This is, I'm working on it fresh. I've been able to build in the different darker colors of green. That's what I'm doing again right now. And I'm wetting areas down with water, and then I'm putting paint on top of it. And it helps it blend, it helps it go on there really nice and smooth. And then once I add the color in, I will take a little bit of water and I'll blend out or make rough edges smooth. So I love this blocking technique, and you can see I'm going to add in a lot of Hooker's green. That's what this color is. It's a Hooker's type of green. And I have permanent green light in there for the lightest colors, and now I'm adding in some browns. I can use neutral, but I'm using a brown. Van Dyke brown would be a really good one to add in if I want to add in some more shading, more color. So I'm just going to continue building up the color. I like to build in a wash, then I like adding in the darker tones. And right now I'm letting the bottom begin to dry, and up at the top I'm looking at my reference photo and I'm looking at the shrubbery. And so I don't want the shrubbery to have a ton of detail. I am going to use water, and then I'm going to drop in paint, let it blend by itself, and I am not going to let it get into heavy detail because I want the grass area to have the detail. Not every area of your picture needs to have a ton of detail so it looks like a photo. You want it to look like art, and one of the ways you can do that is using different techniques, scrubbing, your painting a little, or using a dry brush and adding, like scraping your brush across the paper, and it adds in texture. So, but in this picture, in this piece, I want a lot of the heavier detail to be in the grass. So let's continue to move forward. Slow down this video if you need to by pressing the slower with the controls that YouTube gives us. I'm starting to add in a little bit of detail into these flowers. Just a simple yellow dot in the middle of it is all that it takes. And then I'm using blue tone grays, or a little bit of gray. I would recommend, there's a color that Holbein has, it's called Gray of Gray. It's really pretty, it's very light, and I'll add a tiny bit of cerulean blue in there just to show a little bit of variation with the leaves. Keep it really simple. This is another technique that you could try. I am using a silver velvet brush, and I do not have the brush very wet. And I am putting it into the green on my palette there. And this brush, I smushed that baby down. I took the brush, I smushed it downward, and I wound up with a very scraggly looking brush at the tip. And that's what you can see, you know, if you're watching closely. Slow it down if you need to. But it creates texture. So this is a great way to add some of your brush strokes in for grass without trying to paint every single one. So I don't have a ton of paint on this brush, and I don't have a ton of water. And as I'm moving it around, it's adding this incredible grass texture to it. Pretty simple. You've seen me use yellow ochre to add in some like an orangier type of grass blades and some longer grass blades towards the bottom. And right now I want to deepen these shadows up. I really want to let these little daisies in the field kind of show out. And if you don't have the dark, you're not going to see the light. So one of the things you always want to make sure that you do add into your picture are darks. About 1/3 of the picture should be dark, or 1/3 of the picture should be light. You should know which one you're going for and which one you want to do. And this one is obvious, it's 1/3 dark. Another way to add in some detail into a picture like this is using a black micron pen. That's what I've got here. So I'm just kind of outlining a little bit. It's almost like doodling. And I'm not going to use this in the entire picture, but I would like to have these daisies stand out a little bit more. I'm not worrying about whether this is like everything looks perfect. I want it to be a piece of art, not an exact replication of like a photo. So keep it simple, have fun, try different things. You know I'm always telling you that. And if you look up at that sun where that is, where the sun, where the light is coming through the bushes, it really is a simple textured painting. I just showed you how to do the blocking and showed you how to do a few different techniques. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time.